this thing working? All right, looks like we got something here. See, there he is working hard. All right, we good? All right, we may be live. Are we live? We're live. Welcome to Wednesday. We're late. What do you want? It's our show. We had a technical difficulty. It happens. All right, today's topic. We're going to do another Tinsley transfer. You might be able to see that if you switch cameras. Okay, we're doing this particular Tinsley transfer. This one is the small gouge, the small gouge. And it doesn't look terribly small to me. In fact, the gentleman wearing this particular one looks quite surprised. So that is the one. Now, our willing victim, or perhaps unwilling victim, right there. Our very own Shayla. Our willing applicator, the ever-charming Benji, and our ever-amazing operator back there. Say hi. There he is, the one and only Ian. And of course, it's me. What do you mean? Here I am. All right, so the reason we're doing this, at least in some small part, is because on the 3rd and 4th of next month, we have an esteemed guest coming in by name of Craig Lindbergh. And Craig is going to do a 2-day class, 3rd and 4th, 2 days, on this very thing. Very in-depth, 2 days, super hands-on, limited space. It's on the web. The deposit for the class is $50. But if you go to www.theengineerguy and dig around just a little bit, you will find it. It's going to be worth it. Craig is an IATSE member. I think he told me he used to do stuff for Saturday Night Live, and he's worked on a bunch of movies and so on and so forth. He knows what he's doing. It's going to be a good show. So anyway, watch this. See what Benji does. Hopefully it'll pique enough interest that you'll want to learn how to do it with your own little hands, and off we go. So without any further ado, take over.
So we're doing a pre-made prosthetic. So this is already pre-made. So the class will actually cover how to make these pieces, right?
And some pre-built as well.
Yeah. So when you have pre-made prosthetics, a lot of times they come in skin tones that don't quite match the person you're going to put them on. So what we're going to do today is put this prosthetic on, which is made for Caucasian skin, onto a darker skin to match it up so that it will fit seamlessly on her. Also, what I'm going to do today is show how to do blending edges, make sure that they blend seamlessly. So we're going to take a little more time. I'm going to cut this incorrectly so we have a harder blending edge. And then I'll show you how to go in and fix that or correct it so that you don't. So normally you would cut around this piece outside of the edge, which you can kind of see an edge here. But I'm going to take and go into the edge by accident. Oops, I accidentally went the wrong way. My scissors went crazy. So I'm going to show you how to fix that edge once I put it on. So take that off, and then now we're going to take and peel the acetate off, or the silicone treated paper or plastic, whatever you want to call it. And now we've got the prosthetic ready to go. Here's my rough edge, is going to be up here because it's a little bit thicker, and then these should be fairly easy to blend out with some alcohol or just a little bit of stipple of Prozaid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this on Shayla here. These don't need adhesive. Sometimes you can put a little bit of Prozaid on there to make it stick a little better or lay down edges a little better, but these should be ready to go out of the box.
How hard did you have to press?
Not very hard. I just made sure it's kind of secured to her face. And what I'm going to do now is take a little bit of warm water and just wet the water slide paper. It's just like putting on a temporary tattoo. And yeah, Shayla's going to get a little wet.
That's not sweat from her brow. No. It's not funny. Stop laughing.
Nelson runs a sweatshop here.
That's right. Yeah.
So we'll wet this down just a little bit here. then it should peel off fairly easy.
There you go.
Now, we will take a little bit of alcohol and lay all this down a little bit. And you can see there's material. This is the Bruising. I'm going to use a little bit of a stiffer brush to get stuff to come off.
So the blending edge is water soluble.
No, alcohol soluble.
Okay.
So you'll want to use like 99%, burns it off a little bit quicker.
Okay.
When you get up here to her eyes, I'm going to have her close her eyes. So close your eyes for me, Shayla. Because alcohol does tend to sting. And see, you can pretty much, even a hard edge, you can pretty much blend down from the alcohol. You want to keep your brush kind of clean and have a little bit of fresh alcohol on it. This seems to have like a little bit of a film over it, so I'm going on the whole piece and taking the alcohol. Let's see, the edge is a little stubborn. This was my rough edge right here, and it's already, just with alcohol, it actually blended down, so I didn't cut far enough into it. But there's a little bit of a rough edge right there, so I can go in and show you how to do that with Bruising. And
As far as the rest of it is concerned, you don't necessarily have to remove the blending edge quite like you did on the side that was damaged, right?
Right.
You're just smoothing it out.
just going over it and kind of getting that to kind of blend down into the skin better. So sometimes it'll show. It's better, especially with a piece like this, to kind of have irregular edges because nothing is symmetrical on the face
Makes total sense.
or nature. So the more irregular it is, the less it's going to show.
So effectively what you're doing is you're breaking up the edge.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're creating a piece that's not quite as round, because a round shape is going to look a lot weirder. Just blobbed on her cheek. There we go. Got most of the edges look like they're pretty good. Here's a little bit of a rough edge down here on the bottom. Like I said, we can get rid of those pretty much by. So what we'll do now is there's a few places that look like they're a little rough. You can kind of see an edge here, a little bit here. But what we'll do here is a good one, and there's a little bit of a harder edge, like right here on the back of her. You can see it there in the light. So what we'll do first is I'm going to take basically a sponge that I've taken and made it irregular, and I'm going to take a little bit of just Bruising and I'm going to stipple this around the edges. This will help take that edge down just a little bit and create like a skin texture that'll match the Tinsley transfer, and it'll help that edge, that fine edge, kind of go away. And you can do a couple of layers of this to kind of help get rid of any edge.
Bruising will dry to clear, am I correct?
Yes, Bruising will go clear unless you have a color in it. Then it becomes packed paint.
Trade secret, you just got one.
And then I'm just going to go in here and kind of hit the edge whole thing with one layer of just non-thickened up Bruising. You can do it a little heavy too, and it will help hide that edge better. So these are made to match mostly Caucasian skins. You can see it's kind of more white. Although on most people it will kind of blend in. It's, you know, injuries are going to have different colorations, especially after they're exposed. But with this one, we're going to try to match her skin tone as much as we can on the places that are exposed. What you do when you think about skin tones is you think about what's the undertone of a skin tone. You don't think about it in the sense of the skin itself. So with her, she's got a yellow undertone. With me, I'm more of a red undertone. So now what we're going to do for some of these harder edges is back here. I'm just going to take a little bit of what we call Cabo Patch or Bondo, you call it in your circles, but basically this is just 50% Cabosil and 50% Prozaid mixed together to make a thicker Prozaid cream, basically. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of this on a spatula and run it across this hard edge.
You notice how we got a truck right on time? Yeah. Wednesday tradition.
A little bit of edge up here, so I'm going to run that over this. Now if anything starts sticking as you're working with Prozaid, because it will stick to everything, is you can just take and dip this in a little bit of alcohol and it will make it a little bit easier. You can also use alcohol on the tip of your finger to go in and smooth this back out, and it won't stick to your finger. So therefore then it's getting it down into that groove of where the edge is. And then what we'll do is take a little bit of a pore sponge, like a large pore sponge, and kind of go in and just tap it a little bit, and that will help give it back its skin texture so that you don't have a smooth surface, basically. This had a little bit of blood on it, so she's got more blood.
That's a pretty effect.
Yeah. So there we go. Now the piece is down, so what we want to do next is add skin tone. Skin tone is not one color. Skin tone is multiple colors, usually. You have multiple pigments in your skin, so you want to think about it that way and break the skin up. So with her, she's more of has a yellow tone, so we're going to go with the flesh tone palette from Skin Illustrator and use like the Laos, and then I may use a little bit of this Crayon skin tone palette and pull some of the yellows that are a little bit darker and just kind of break the skin tone up. And what we'll do to do that is we're actually going to use the spatter technique, which is taking a cut down chip brush and just spattering it onto the skin to create that breakup. And then we go in and create the wound and deepen that up and make it look a little grosser. So with this, I'm going to take the lighter color first and kind of go in and it's a little messy, so you might want to have a cape.
Have you done this before, Shayla?
So we're going to just take and I don't want to make these as fine as possible. Sometimes if your brush is a little bit wet or too long of a brush, it might be a little harder to get the fine spatter.
brush you would normally use, that type of brush?
This is just a chip brush, and you cut it down. So that's normally what most people make spatter brushes out of. You can also use like a toothbrush and just use it that way. We sell brushes called dye brushes, which are can be used to do spatter as well. So you can see now the color is kind of going a little more her skin tone. Not quite there yet, but we're going to do a little bit of a darker tone now to kind of mix that up.
And if you're counting, that brush is about 1/3 the length that it started off.
Yeah, you want to cut it down pretty short so you can get kind of that flicking effect from the brush. This also helps hide edges. When you do this, this will create the breakup in the skin tone, which helps hide those edges a little bit. So you can see now she's a little more these are a little more her skin tone. Take a little bit of a different skin tone color from the Krylon palette. Use this other brush.
Now you'll notice that he's wetting out the palette with 99% alcohol. For those of you who may not know this, Benji, explain why it has to be 99% and not just the stuff you get at the drugstore.
99% just activates it because it's heavier concentration of alcohol. It just helps pull the pigment up better, and you get more pigment using this. I have seen people use other alcohols, so like 70% and stuff like that, but you don't get as much pigment pulled up off of the palette if you use a lesser.
Now, interestingly, I don't know very much about this, but I'm fascinated by the fact that he really hasn't selected anything as dark as I thought he would, which goes back to the point about the skin being a collection of color.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, with her you wouldn't want to go too dark because she's not that dark. She's more of a yellow skin tone. Actually, I think she told me that her TV paint stick from Krylon is Chinese.
And she nods in agreement.
You can see the breakup of color now, and it hides the edge. There's no real notice of the edge now. So now we can go in and create the gory effect. You will paint over your reds that are already there with the skin tones when you're flicking like this. So, but don't worry, we're going to go back and create that now with your actual brushes. So, a few brushes, and we'll just use some alcohol makeup here. I'm going to go in with prime red first just to get the wound out. And then I'll also go back and do some highlighting and to make the edges of this pop up, like where the skin turned back, because usually you're going to have a light layer of flesh underneath. And we'll probably do a little bit of spattering of some reds and some bruise tones, because when you have trauma like this on your face, you're going to have some discoloration around the edges of it as well.
So at this point, you're basically brightening what was there. that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, you're going in and detailing what's the wound is, basically. So you're going in and creating this deeper. So right now I'm just getting the base coat. A lot of times with prosthetic makeup, you have to think of it in terms of layers. So you're layering these colors to create different effects. So I'm going to go in now with a darker red and kind of get that down into some of these deeper creases that are in this sculpt. See how it pops the deeper spaces, and it's a little darker now. Got a little bit of a darker tone, and then what I'll do now is I'm going to put a little bit of what I usually like to do is pop a little bit of yellow across. So I'm not going to put too much yellow in this, but I'm going to put and take and rub this across the tops of these high points and try to get it to almost be like a highlight. Because you want it to kind of highlight these areas. Because there's a lot of detail actually in this sculpt. And these are made by Christian Tinsley, so they are professional grade Hollywood makeups. So they're very well sculpted and look good. Some of this with a little bit of black. You want it to have some dimension. So I'm going to go in and just kind of hit the deeper spots with some black. And you don't want a lot of pigment on your brush because you don't want to put too much light, because if you get too dark, harder to go back.
So in the realm of the wound, what role does the black play?
This is just giving you a deeper shading or shadow so that you kind of have a little more dimension. And what I'm doing is taking a little bit of alcohol on just a brush that has nothing on it, kind of blending the color down, almost dry brushing it, so to speak, except for it's with a wet brush.
It would be more like the clotting.
Take it.
It would be the clotting on the blood if it was a wound.
Yeah. This is giving you dimension to the areas that are actually raised or gouged out.
So what Shayla said, so that's what you're helping pull out, so to speak, with the black?
You're kind of creating like areas where the air has already started to make the blood dry up, basically.
Okay. You're making it nasty.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's got enough black in there, and then what we'll do is we'll clean up the edges. So with the edges, what we'll do is take a little bit of a lighter skin tone and just hit the edges with that to kind of give it a little more dimension. So I'm going to take natural one, I think, a little bit of rice paper.
And those are PPI colors, or Skin Illustrator.
That is correct. And I'm going to kind of just take and hit the edges a little bit. And what this does is also give it more dimension. I gave it some shading to kind of create that deeper recess, and now I'm giving it highlight to kind of help pop it out. So you've got to think of it as almost like a painting.
The highlight.
To give it dimension, to give it some highlight and some shading to help. And then what we'll do is go back and, alright, so that's pretty much done there. So now what we'll do is go back in and create some of the bruising and blood effect that you would normally get when you have an injury. So we'll just take a little bit of like the bruise tone, the FX palette. You don't want to do too crazy, but you can. So what you're going to do is just kind of go in and go around your edge and give it just a little bit of a purple tone. This helps create that effect of she's hurt. And if you get too heavy, what you can do is go back with a little bit of a alcohol wash brush and blend that in, or a sponge. What we'll do is take a sponge and just kind of dip that in a little bit of alcohol. And then you can take and blend those down a little bit so that they don't stick out as much.
So to do proper bruise effect, how many different colors might you use?
I'm probably going to use a couple of different colors. I'll probably use a little bit of the blood tone,
Okay.
a little bit of the aged blood. The closer up you get to the piece, and the smaller you flick the brush, the tighter your dots are going to be, and the less it's going to go all over the place. We'll use a different sponge for that. Don't want to do that. Let's see. I'll bring in more sponges.
Now, while you're setting all that stuff up, I have to point out you're wearing a Netherworld t-shirt. I think you're wearing it for a good cause and for a good reason. You've been working for those guys for how long now?
3 years. This is my third season, so.
Okay. So he's learned from some of the best in town, that's for sure.
Yeah, Roy.
Bill Johnson hangs out over there
Bill
every once in a while, I
Johnson's.
remember.
There's some.
Hmm.
So now what I'm doing is kind of pulling back some of this so it's not so crazy. And basically all I'm doing is just dipping my sponge in a little bit of alcohol, and it pulls back the color just a little bit. Don't want to go crazy and put like a whole bunch of alcohol to wash away all the work that you've already done. Alright, so now it looks a little more bloody. Now it's ready for actual blood.
See how already though it's looking as though she's bruised. And it's very, very, very subtle, but it makes that prosthetic look more like a part of her face. Like it's not just something that got stuck on there. That there's, if you want to call it collateral damage now, around the actual wound.
So I'm going to use Krylon's HD blood, which is great for TV and film. Woohoo! This is the dark color, so this is going to be a little bit darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use this strategically in some spots. Apparently Shelley doesn't want blood all over her sweater.
There's a face only a mother could love. There you go. Oh, this is good. Tell us a little more about the blood. What does it do? What does it not do?
This blood is just a liquid blood from Krylon. It's made so that it reads well on TV and film. With stuff like this, I don't to just go in and cover it up with blood because it has so much detail. So using it strategically in spots that would be bloody or kind of to give it a gloss, that's what I normally do. This wets out pretty good over stuff. It's going to give you kind of a good bloody effect. I'll give her one little dribble of blood down here. Always think about where blood's going to run the most. So typically with something like this, it's going to run down. So it's going to go out of the lowest point of your wound. Kind of force a drip out of the bottom there.
Perfect. You're going to lunch after this, right, Shayla?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Through the drive-thru.
Steakhouse.
I want them to see my face
That's right.
in the drive-thru.
And so what I'm going to do now is just kind of take a brush and just kind of give this a little bit of a wet appearance because this helps kind of give it that fresher, it's just been ripped off of her face look. Somebody was trying to make a meal out of her.
Mm.
Don't know why.
Love.
And we're just going to put a little bit right here. Brush that to that spot. And there we go.
Bada bing. All right, let's get a close-up.
She's done.
Of course, now my exposure is all messed up. There we go, sort of, kind of. Not really. I don't know why. Here, go back to the one. The exposure on this guy's messed up. That's weird. All right, take a look. There we go. That's pretty gross. That's very gross. You should be proud of yourself. That's excellent. That's excellent. Okay.
So,
All right, so let's ever so quickly go back and review what we consumed in the process of doing this. We went through one transfer, right?
yeah, we had the one small gouge transfer
Okay.
from Tinsley. That's the great thing with these Tinsley transfers is you can add multiple transfers and put them all over the face, and they're going to add you can add different layers to it and just go to town. You could completely rip someone's face apart with just a few transfers.
Kinda love
With this, we just used the one. So, and then after that, we used a little bit of Prozaid and a little bit of Cabo Patch or Bondo.
Proceed.
Not very much that we used at all. It was a very minimal amount. After that, we used the Skin Illustrator and the FX palette and the flesh tone palette and the Krylon flesh tone palette.
Okay. And in terms of other little stuff, you didn't use this,
I
but
didn't use that.
right, this is a lymphatic blood works drying paste from our friends at PPI.
You could have used airbrush paints like the Age
Right.
Blood and Lividity. This is Pro Air Skin Tones. We could probably use some of that if we wanted to.
And this is a mangled chip brush, nothing special, but you see how short it is? That's how short it is.
Use a few wedge sponges that we chopped up and
Non-latex. And
a little
these
bit of
guys.
stipple sponge. Yep.
Right. So that's basically the drill. Okay, once again, I want to tell you that if you want to learn more about this technique, it is December the 3rd and the 4th, which I realize is not a weekend. That is a Thursday and a Friday. However, it will be worth every penny. This guy knows what he's doing. He can build the pieces. He can apply the pieces. He can paint the pieces. And when you're through, you can do all that as well. Okay? What else is happening? Just so you know, ever so quick, next week is Thanksgiving week. We're going to be closed both Thursday and Friday next week. We are taking Black Friday off. However, we will be open on Saturday, so come on down. It'll probably be fun. And I can't think of anything else. Can you think of anything else?
Can't think of anything
Okay.
else.
Well, it's all way bye-bye.
Bye. I hope that helps.
Me too.